Troy Komodo, survey biologist, entomologist from Canadian Food Inspection Agency out of Vancouver, BC. CFIA is the equivalent of APHIS up here, so we're regulators. So my topic is going to be a little bit different from Leela's there, also because we just kind of found it here in Vancouver. A little bit of history about myself. I've been my federal career with the CFIA has followed EAB, and it's followed me. So I actually lived out in Ottawa in 2001, 2002, and in July I got a call from my boss saying, "Hey, you're going down to Windsor. You got to check out this new bug," which turned out to be EAB. At the time, visual signs and symptoms, right at eye level. Cracked bark, exposed S-shaped galleries, D-shaped exit holes, all at eye level. I thought this thing was going to be easy to find, and ever since I've worked on it in a ton of different provinces. I have not won a battle. It is to me a great teacher, and I'm just learning all the time. So I'm going to talk about EAB. It's going to be a little bit different from Leela's talk. A couple things. I'm just a regulator. I'll talk a bit about the management that the city of Vancouver is going to do. And the other thing is that we just found this basically back in March of this year. So don't have a lot to update, just kind of more some of the observations that I've seen. So just give everybody some perspective where I am. Vancouver, BC, just a couple hours north of Seattle. And last year, member of the public was sitting outside, and this was in June, and this green beetle fell on his shoulder. And luckily, he's an amateur entomologist and a phenomenal photographer. So he took it home with him, took some photographs, and somehow he was able to contact us. So there's a lot of luck in this story that I'm going to tell you. So just zooming in here, that red dot, the red balloon, is where the adult was intercepted last year. Just to give you some perspective, we got Stanley Park at the top. I can't use my cursor too well, but hopefully you guys can see it. This body of water here, just below the red balloon, is Falls Creek. This area that I'm kind of circling under Science World, that's the Olympic Village. So in 2010, when we hosted the Winter Games, this is where all the athletes stayed. For those of you that know Japanese beetle, I'm also working on that eradication project too. This is our ground zero for Japanese beetle. As we zoom in, you can see that there's a lot of trees, but they're all street trees. There's not a lot of kind of forest or riparian areas. This is downtown Vancouver. There are some parks and streets with trees, but it's all planted. Once again, you can see the balloon there. That's where the adult beetle was intercepted. So as soon as we got the interception, we looked at the city's tree inventory, and a couple hundred feet away from the interception, there's a row of ash on Nelson Street, and just south of that, there's quite a bit of ash in Coopers, and Marinaside Crescent is basically just lined with ash trees. So what we did is we did some visual surveys, also did some branch peelings. So those 14 ash on Nelson Street, I sampled 2 ash trees and took down 2 branches from both of them, peeled them, all negative. We also did some visual surveys of ash nearby. So within about a kilometer, we tried to visit, most of the clusters of ash. I just want to point this tree out because in 2023, in July or June, I was standing in the middle of the park, and I was just scanning the whole park, looking at all the ash, and they all look pretty good. And this one also looked pretty good. You can see it's a pretty full crown. Doesn't look like there's any type of dieback at all. No chlorosis. There's no woodpecker feeding. No bark cracks. Hardly any epicormic shoots. But that tree is actually positive, and we'll come back to it later. So this is still 2023. We got the adult interception. So we're doing some visual surveys, did a little bit of branch sampling, and then we decided to put out some traps. So we put out about 54 traps within about a kilometer of the adult interception. We use both green sticky prison traps and green 12-unit funnel traps. All the traps are baited with both the Z3 hexanol and the lactone pheromone. Here's a map that shows you the interception in red. The green circles are ash, and the yellow circles are where we put the traps. And you do have to remember, we didn't get the traps out till late June, early July. So we missed a good chunk of the flight season, and all the traps are negative. Branch sampling was negative, traps were negative, and ground surveys were negative. So this year we decided to switch it up a little bit. I decided to branch sample, and this is a technique that the Canadian Forest Service developed back when EAB was kind of first starting off in Ontario. And the crux of it, like Leela was talking about, is that the larvae are the ones that kill the tree, and what we're doing is we're pruning off branches, and we're going to peel them, looking for larvae and gallery. So we try to pick good sized trees, and we take 2 live branches, anywhere from about 3 to 10 centimeter in diameter. It's kind of hard to gauge that from the ground, so you just do the best that you can. EAB, like a lot of insects, does like it when it's nice and warm and sunny, so we try to take the branches from the south aspect where possible, but there's things like cars and other things that play a role into the decision of what branches are taken. And then once the branches are cut down, one of the things that I started incorporating is that we look at the cross section of the branch first, because sometimes we're lucky and we cut the branch where a gallery is, and if you do that, you can actually see the frass-filled galleries just underneath the outer bark there. So we cut down the branches, we buck them into pieces, wrap them all up, mark them with the tree number, and then we start peeling. So we put the branches into vices, we get some draw knives, also some whittling knives, and we just slowly start to peel away. And you can see a little bit of the gallery that's starting to form on the photo of the right there. This is a document that the Canadian Forest Service produced that just talks about branch sampling procedures, which you can see that are numbered. I can send this to you if you want later. I can post it in the chat here. So what we do is, EAB the female tends to prefer to initially attack the ash higher up in the crown. During the first part of colonization, females prefer like thinner bark. So just like with our trapping, we try to get our traps as high into the ashes as we can. And for this branch sampling, we just try to get as high as possible. And I was able to convince the city of Vancouver to loan us a couple bucket trucks. So March 14th, we started doing that, and I think that was a couple days, Joey, before I was supposed to give it an update on at this meeting. But now you know why I wasn't there. So yeah, we went as high as we can. We try to go mid canopy and as high as possible. Remove 2 branches, either by bucket truck or we have a 20-foot pole saw. It can take me, anywhere from, 5 to 10 minutes to assess an ash. I do look for certain signs and symptoms just to help out. Sometimes there aren't any, and you gotta just try to hope for the best. In some situations, I have noticed a fair bit of epicormics coming from areas where there isn't pruning damage. So when that happens, I try to select those branches, and not all the time, but in a couple cases, especially for Cooper's Park here, I selected branches with these epicormic shoots, and it did turn out to be positive. Another symptom I was looking at was a heavy seed load. Just like epicormics, just like chlorosis, dieback. It can be caused by a lot of things, but you just got to work with what you have. And there was once, well, I did choose a couple trees with a heavy seed load, and there was one instance where that tree was actually positive. Once we get the branches down, it's hard. Leela talked about woodpeckering, and we actually don't see much heavy flaking. Actually, none at all on the stem so far. And even when I'm selecting a branch, it's hard to see any woodpeckering. But when you sometimes you do get lucky, or you're picking the right branch, and you do get a little bit of feeding. So here's a case where we get what looks like a little bit of maybe feeding or exploration by a woodpecker, and we just start peeling right there. And after you remove a layer or so, you can start to see the gallery pop out. And here's another different branch, and you can see there is some woodpecker feeding, just not the flaking. That's a lot easier to spot. So once again, I only observed the woodpecker damage once the branch was down. You see it, then they concentrate on peeling that area first, and then as you gradually peel, you can see that the gallery is exposed there. So we kind of found EAB like middle of March, and we kept on branch sampling for a couple weeks, and we hadn't found a branch or a tree with any exit holes. So I was kind of wondering, where the source of the beetles are. Where the first source of the beetles are, or maybe the core. Sorry. So I was walking around kind of near the adult interception in 2023. The city of Vancouver informed me that they have street trees that are in the park inventory, but there's also engineering trees that belong to the engineering group. And they didn't tell me about this set of ash that belonged to the engineering group until late March. And as soon as I heard that, because there's like 23 trees that are about 500 meters from the adult interception, so I was like, I got to go there. As soon as I go there, walking around, all the trees look pretty good. This is leaf off time. And then from like 100 feet away, I see this one ash, and there's a whole bunch of bark removed at the bottom. And, even from 100 feet, I can kind of see a bit of F-shaped gallery. So I go to it right away, and you can see it. It's the tree second from the photo, the second from the left. It is just covered in galleries. But if you just look above the galleries, somebody has taken an axe or a hatchet and hacked into the trees. And if they didn't do that, we actually wouldn't see any of these galleries. And it's funny because in the third tree from the left, you can see that there's a bit of a scar there, a bit of callus tissue, but there's no bark removed. And it's hard to see, but you have to believe me that there's exit holes from about 20 feet up all the way down to ground level, like right to the soil. And there's four ash trees just like that. And none of them have any woodpecker feeding on the main stem or even on the branches. All the bark is intact except for the spot where this person hacked into the ash. And this is part of downtown Vancouver. I showed this photos to the city, and they're like, there's a lot of homeless people there. There's a lot of people that just kind of do different things. And this person, I thought I was going to be the first one to see EAB here, but it was actually somebody else that found it before I did. And I'd kind of like to hire them because they actually know what they're doing. So these are 4 ash. You can see on the far photo on the right, that's the substrate that they're growing in. So these ash are on a concrete overpass, and there's only a 1.5 to 2 feet of soil, so it's not a great spot for the trees. So just currently a quick little update. We just confirmed EAB in Vancouver in March, so it's just been a big scramble. One of the key things to keep in mind up here in Vancouver, ash is supposed to be Oregon ash is supposed to be native, but I've never seen it um, outside of the city environment. There is a little bit planted by the city of Vancouver. I have branch sampled some of those ash, and they are negative. Uh, to date, we've probably sampled about 120 ash trees, give or take. That means 2 branches per tree, so we've peeled about 240 branches. And right now we have 15 ash at 6 sites. There are some crappy looking ash near these infested ones. We just haven't had time to branch sample everything. And with the branches that I do peel that are positive, it's not a very high gallery density. I think at the most we get 3 galleries in a branch. Often it's just one, sometimes 2, that type of thing. This map here, just kind of want to show you where those 6 infested sites are relative to each other. So right where it says Yaletown, this red dot here, that's the 23 adult interception. This is Cooper's Park, Andy Livingston. This is where those 4 ash trees are riddled with exit holes all the way down to ground level. And then we got Crab Park, Strathcona Park. Strathcona is in that earlier photograph where I showed you those nice green lush ash trees. That one's actually positive. And then we got a single street tree here that's positive, and another ash in this part that's positive. The fuchsia circles are street trees, and then the blue diamonds are negative branch sampling results. And then this just shows you the map of Vancouver. We have 5,000 street trees as ash, which is about 5% of the tree inventory. So those are the fuchsia circles. You can see the blue diamonds where we've done some branch sampling, and then the red is the positive locations. So kind of lessons learned. I was expecting to see a lot more woodpecker activity. When I've seen emerald ash borer in Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, even in Winnipeg, Manitoba, all the ash trees I see are heavily woodpeckered. But interesting enough, the ones at Andy Livingston, which had exit holes right down to ground level, there was no woodpecker feeding. And the reason for that, why I think, is that, the downtown core, it's just not very good woodpecker habitat. There's not a lot of treed or forested areas. There's no riparian or green belts. These are all just street trees and or private trees. And if they're starting to die, and if they die, they have to be taken down quickly because of fire hazard and safety hazards. So you just don't leave proper habitat for woodpeckers. The other thing is that it doesn't seem like there's a high density of galleries in the branches, but I don't want to say we've cut it kind of early, because every time you think that, there's always a satellite population somewhere that you just haven't found. On the branches, one thing that I've learned from the Canadian Forest Service is that when EAB attacks the branches, there's a greater proportion of the population that it takes 2 years for them to develop versus 1. Another learning lesson for me is that for branch sampling, I'm not great at following rules to begin with, but I think we just have to use these as guidelines. The CFS branch sampling protocol says taking 2 branches, but there's been times where I've taken 3. There was a situation where the city, I had picked out 2 branches for them to take by the bucket truck, but they had to remove 1 to get to the 2. So we got 3 branches on the ground, and somebody was about to chip the 3rd branch. And I go, hey, let's keep that one, right? I mean, we've spent the energy to take it down. might as well just peel it. And that one actually turned out to be positive. The other thing too is that, you come to a site, this is if you have an infestation, you're trying to delimit all that. If if you come to a spot and the trees look healthy, you just got to branch sample anyways, because sometimes the positives, look quite healthy when you're there. Some other lessons learned. I didn't know this, but the Canadian Forest Service, they've done a fair bit of branch sampling, and EAB galleries on branches aren't always S-shaped. They can be kind of linear. On the photo on the right, you can see, especially where the egg was sort of the larvae emerged, or through the bark, you can see a little bit of S-shape here, but then it just kind of straightens out. And we actually dug a larvae out of here, so we can confirm that that's EAB. So, it's kind of the opposite. When you get a tree that's just being colonized for the first time, or it's just lightly colonized, seems like the ash has a lot of energy and reserves to put towards defense and to try to callus the gallery. And to me, that's why I think you get that tight ash shape. But even when a tree is not infested on the branch, it can be a little bit S, but then it can go straight for quite a while. The other thing that kind of threw me off, and I wasn't totally prepared, because as soon as we found this in March, I just kind of in branch sampling mode, and I was just kind of thinking we had till the beginning of June in Vancouver before emergence would happen, and unfortunately, I was driving down to go catch my favorite baseball team, the Seattle Mariners, play the Oakland A's, and as I'm driving down, I get a text that we had adult emergence. So the city of Vancouver, they're at one of the infested parks. They're assessing the trees to take down, and lo and behold, EAB landed on her car. So, we had kind of early emergence. What's the city of Vancouver going to do? So, like I said at the beginning, I work for the equivalent of APHIS. I'm just a regulator. My job surveys. Our job as an agency is just to regulate movement control, that type of thing. It's really up to the property owners to manage ash that's infested. So what's going to happen? CFIA will regulate Vancouver at some point. We're still working on getting that finalized. We have issued prohibitions of movement and notices of treat to the city. Actually, right around now, they've actually been doing some assessments. They're hoping, this week or next week, the city's going to start cutting all 15 infested trees. Plus, they're going to take out any ash that are in decline. They don't really have any time to do more surveys and branch sampling. Besides Japanese beetle, they're also dealing with cutting hemlock in Stanley Park for hemlock loopers. So they're really, really tight on resources. So they're not able to survey. They're just going to take out any adjacent declining ash, chip all that. And then any of the standing ash within about 1 kilometer of infested areas, they're going to stem inject with triazine. What are the next steps that we're going to do? We're going to continue. I'm going to continue to keep on branch sampling in cities adjacent to Vancouver, immediately adjacent to Vancouver. And then I'm also going to start doing some of the cities that are, close by. I'm also trying to get some help. CFIA, we don't have a lot of staff. I know you folks down south hear that a lot from us up here in Canada, but yeah, we're just constantly short-staffed. So what I'm looking at is just trying to get other folks involved. The University of the Fraser Valley, which is about 60 kilometers east of Vancouver, they're going to work with the city of Abbotsford, and we have an undergrad student that's going to kind of do like an honors type of thesis, and he's going to do some branch sampling in Abbotsford, which is really great. I'm kind of thinking about doing a trapping trial. Traps are, they're okay. I kind of prefer branch sampling, but traps can help a bit there with detection and coverage. So because we have what I think is a low population. I think this would be a good opportunity to also do some testing. So Synergy Semiochemical Corporation, they're a Canadian company that makes the green or they sell the green sticky trap and the lures. They actually have a new trap design that they'd like to test out. It's kind of like part green funnel trap and part panel trap or intercept trap. So we may try that, but we're only going to do it if I can get a student, because we're just really strapped for resources. Yeah, and that's it. Thanks for listening. There's my email there if you guys have any questions. That's my cell number. If you feel free to give me a buzz or text. And this is just a photo of the Canadian Forest Service when they came out in March, and we spent a lot of time dragging branches through the city, and we got a lot of weird looks. Some people are walking their dogs during the day. We're out there just walking our branches of ash. So I just want to thank Chris and the Canadian Forest Service for coming out and helping me. So thanks for your attention.